Gen Wealth, where we explain how money works before you're forced to figure it out on your own. Today we're going to be talking about how to manage your savings, and luckily for you, we've already gone over the most important part, making a budget, which you can see in our last video that we uploaded. Make sure to check that out if you haven't already. So now that you've got a budget going successfully, you're dedicating money to wherever it needs to go, and you're managing your expenses in an efficient manner. But wait, you've already allocated 20% or more of your money to savings. What do you do with that 20% now? I mean, that 20% might be worth $80, $50, $100, whatever part of your budget that it makes up. But, where do you put that money? What do you do with that money? What do you do with your savings every single month? Well, we've got a couple of things that you should do to help set you up for your future. And the first thing that you're going to want to do is set up an emergency fund. Now, what is an emergency fund? Well, an emergency fund is something that you are going to have money saved up in that you should only use for true emergencies. For example, let's say that you break your foot and you don't have enough money to go to the doctor's office. Well, you might want to dip your toes into the emergency fund. And how much money should you realistically have saved up in your emergency fund when it's all said and done? Well, for a teenager, we'd say about $2,000. Now, for a full-on adult, you want to have around 6 months worth of living expenses saved up in your emergency fund. But we understand that, as a teenager, that might not be very realistic. I mean, let's be real, right? You're living with your parents, and 6 months worth of living expenses really wouldn't come out to be that much. Now, this emergency fund you can carry with you for the rest of your life, right? So let's say 5 years down the road, you're in college and you suddenly don't have enough money for rent. Well, you might want to dip your toes in your emergency fund, which is $2,000, and you suddenly have $2,000 and maybe even more money for you to help you with rent that you saved up 5 years before when you were a teenager. So this can really help you later on in your life. Or let's say, I hope this doesn't happen, but let's say you get into a car accident when you are 18 and suddenly there's a ton of expenses that you have to pay for. Well, that emergency fund is sitting there for you, ready for you to use at any point you desire. And remember, you want to use this emergency fund only for emergencies. So you're going to put about 5% of your budget into your emergency fund. Now, when should you stop putting 5%? Well, that's really up to you. But like I said before, you might want to stop when you reach the $2,000 mark. But if you want to be extra safe, you can save every single month 5% of your budget to an emergency fund. You can never have enough money in your emergency fund. So that might seem like a heavy task, but trust me, your future self is really going to thank you for it. And now, what do you do with the other 15% of your budget that makes up savings? Well, what we recommend is you put 10% of your savings toward investments every single month. Now, what are investments? Well, investing is essentially where you put money into the stock market and hope that a company does well so your stocks gain more value. And some stocks give you dividends and others don't. And remember, we'll cover this more in depth during our investing chapter, which we'll get to in roughly a month. So make sure to stay tuned as we continue to release more and more financial videos. But what I'm saying here is 10% of your savings should go toward investing. Now, remember, investing is almost like gambling, just not as risky. Because let's say you put all of your money into a random company that's kind of shaky. Well, if that company goes bankrupt, there goes all the money that you put into the stock market. But if you manage your investments wisely, and this is where we recommend that you really ask your parents for help. Ask an advisor for help, a coach, a teacher. Ask them where they're putting their money if they're successful investors, because you want to gain as much knowledge as you can. Now, what we recommend is generally you might want to put your money into already successful companies that are on the S&P 500. For example, Amazon and Walmart, those are two companies that are not going anywhere anytime soon. So if you put money into them, you can generally be sure that their stock will continue to go up. And in 5 or 10 years, that $200 that you put into Amazon or Walmart might be worth like $500 or even $1,000 if you're really lucky. So if you put money in the stock market now, it's only going to go up from here if you invest safely. So 10 years down the road, the $200 that you put in, maybe it's worth $5,000. And that's only from a $200 initial investment. So you really want to put 10% of your total savings every month into investments in the stock market. And like I said before, make sure to ask your parents and other advisors for advice, especially because this is new territory for many teens who don't know much about the stock market. And make sure that and I'd also want to say that you put the last 5% of your savings into a savings account. Now, what bank do you want to choose for your savings account? Well, that depends on your situation. Maybe you want to open up a bank account in the same bank as your parents do, or maybe you want to choose a different bank that offers better rates, or maybe you want to just choose the nearest bank to your house. It really depends on your situation. And on our website, we have comparisons of rates from different banks completely for free, unbiased. So make sure to check out our website, teenfinancialliteracy.org, if you want to check that out. So just to recap, as we learned in the last video, 20% of your budget should go towards savings. Of that 20%, you want to put 5% of your money of your savings, into an emergency fund. You want to put 10% of your savings into investments, and you want to put the last 5% of your savings into your savings account. Now, let's say your parents don't allow you to invest, or you don't have a way to invest. Well, I'd like to say there are apps such as Robinhood or E-Trade that you can use to invest right on your phone. But let's say you are unable to invest, maybe because of your parents that are scared that you're going to waste money or something similar to that. Well, then you want to put 15% of your savings into a savings account and 5% into an emergency fund. But that's only if your parents don't allow you to invest. We highly recommend that you begin investing at an early age so you can learn what investing is all about and have money saved up in stocks for the future, which are generally going to trend upwards. And that's really all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, or like I said, check out our website, teenfinancialliteracy.org. You can fill out a form there to ask us questions, or also, our videos are also on that website, and there are free documents. For example, if you don't know how to, maybe pay your taxes from your first job, we have documents on our website to help you with that. And we also have budgeting sheets and lots of materials you can use. And again, that's teenfinancialliteracy.org. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and please remember, don't just earn money, learn it.